Good evening. I have a very special guest tonight from Geneva. Lemlem Girmatsion is a public health specialist with an undergraduate degree in health studies from the University of Western Ontario and a master's in public health from University of Waterloo in Canada before moving to Geneva in 2010. She worked in the era of health promotion with Indigenous people of Canada and the Northwest Territories prior to joining the University of Geneva. As programs coordinator, she worked as a health consultant for International Federation of the Red Cross and IFRC with the health department in Geneva. Currently, Lemlem Girmatsion holds the position of education coordinator at the Global Health Center. Good evening, Lemlem. It's really great to have you here on EmbassyMedia.
Thank you for having me, Arid, and the rest of the team. It's a pleasure to be with you all.
Fantastic. Let's start with your career background. What is it that you do as a coordinator of Global Health Center?
Okay, so as you rightfully mentioned, my background or my educational background is in public health, and in the capacity of education coordinator, a lot of my work consists of working with students in the content part and the program of our courses. And so a lot of it is, for example, in the capacity of Masters of Global Health program coordinator, but also other executive education type of courses.
Great. Major European countries are in various stage of the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic from a global health perspective. What short and long-term implications will the pandemic have, Lemlem?
I think with COVID right now,
yes.
It has become a classic example of what global health is, for example, or what public health is and the value that it brings to our societies. And the implication is made very obvious, which is that any sort of inequities and inequalities are becoming a major hindrance to ensuring that populations are properly taken care of. And so as we're seeing right now, be it in developed countries such as the United States or even European countries, as a matter of fact, the challenges are very real. And so typically we think of the global South as countries that predominantly struggle because of the question of inequities, lack of resources. COVID, however, has brought to light that there's many factors at play, and it's time for all of us to prepare and to deal with the issues that we're affronted with.
How's Switzerland dealing with this pandemic in Geneva and in the whole country in Switzerland? What's your take or what's your observations?
I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert on these issues, but from what I gather, is that Switzerland, like the rest of Europe, is struggling. This is a multifaceted problem. It's a problem that you have to factor in economic issues, political issues, cultural issues. As you know, governance or people that are in the political position that have to make the decisions. It's a balancing act. And so it is a very real struggle and a challenge, I think, regardless of what country we're talking about. Switzerland is doing its best with all the challenges at hand, but it's no exception.
Let me take you back to your work, to the coordinator of Global Health Center. How challenging, how difficult is your work at the moment at the global?
Well, so we at the Global Health Center, the center has three pillar activities. So the center focuses on, it's within the, first of all, I should rephrase, it is housed within the Graduate Institute, which is a university in Geneva. And then you have various centers that operate within the university, and the Global Health Center is one of them. And so the Global Health Center has 3 pillar activities, which focus predominantly in education, convening, and research. And so I fall in the context of education as the education coordinator. And so the challenge, I guess I can speak to more from education point of view, which is that right now, a lot of our students are international students. And so with all the restrictions, travel restrictions that are put in place, there are implications which are challenging, but we can definitely look at them as an opportunity. And so one, for example, is the use of technology as a means of allowing us to address questions of access. And so to have the possibility to follow a classroom from, China or Eritrea, or hopefully if there's internet connection, or other countries, has become very real. And that's what we're forced to deal with. So on the one hand, it's a challenge because our point of reference is changing in how we view education, which is that the traditional classical classroom setting to taking it, virtually. So it's a matter of perspective, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ma'am, Lemlem, this is huge. I mean, this is great achievement. But tell us how you became to be this successful and driven woman, and what challenge did you have to overcome to be where you are today?
Well, thank you for the compliment. I think success is relevant. Success has a lot to do with the opportunities and the privileges that are afforded to us, be it in terms of support through family, governments, community, sometimes also sheer will and determination. And so, although I am humbled by your compliment,
You are very humble, yeah.
I believe that there's always more to be done and more to be achieved. I mean,
no, absolutely, no, great. Lemlem, when was the last time you visited Eritrea?
I believe it's been 2 years now since my last visit, which was in December 2018 with my family.
Yeah. Where have you been? Just only in Asmara, or tell me more. Tell me more about your visit.
Well, I mean, this time around, it was a really important time for me to visit with my family, meaning my husband and my 2 kids.
Yeah.
It was their first time visiting Eritrea. And so we went in December because I personally wanted to be in Eritrea at a time when things were a little bit calmer, less of the diaspora. So that way we get to really have a feel and connect with our families and our communities that are there. And so obviously we arrived in Asmara, and we made sure to visit typical places like Vatsa, Masawa, but always also the village that I was born in. That's a must-go place for me because that's how I really connect with my ancestors, if you will.
Absolutely.
Not to be
and
village mentality, but it's very important.
Fantastic. And how old are your children? How are your kids?
So my kids are 9 and 6. 2 boys. And so it was a very important visit for them because finally, they get to see the culture in many ways, meet family members, have an understanding of where Eritrea is. And so that was a very important visit for all of us.
This is a very special episode and special edition on EmbassyMedia, the pride of the 3 generations. As an Eritrean, what does the title of this program, The Pride of 3 Generations, mean to you, Lemlem?
Very good question. And I do think it's an excellent title. And I'm glad that you've dedicated a session or a series to this. Because in essence, what to me that means is to recognize the important people that have influenced us and shaped us to be who we are today. And so depending on how you want to look at it, I can take myself as a point of reference and then trace it back to my, my parents and my grandparents. And that gives me my 3 generations, leading to my children, of course. For those of us, as I mentioned, who've been privileged enough to be supported and guided in life, to bring it to light. And so that is part of the responsibility, I feel, that I think most young Eritreans, or people at least in my generation, think about. How we manage to fulfill that, how we find ways to live it and to sort of put it to light is, I think, a challenge that each one of us has to navigate. But that's part of our story, definitely.
No, absolutely. Okay, of course, now working as a professional, I didn't ask you about your background, really. If you dig more into all Eritreans, they have very special stories. I am sure that you have also something to share with. You were born in Eritrea. And when you visit always to Eritrea, we're talking about the 3 generations, the proud of 3 generations. You just mentioned some of your connections, but there are some people in Eritrea that are very much connected to your parents, to yourself. Can you share some stories, that you want to tell us on this edition? On this episode, on this special broadcast
Sure.
of EmbassyMedia.
As I mentioned, I was born in a small village, very beautiful village, at least in my memories, in mountaintop in the southern region of Eritrea. And one of the reasons why every time I visit or I go back to Eritrea, I make sure that I visit is because I do have memories that seem to be fading with years, obviously, because it's been such a long time. But the first 4, at least 5 years of my life were there, and that includes my family, my grandparents, both from my mother and father's side. And so I have. It's shaped me to be the person that I am in many ways, and that actually includes the connection that I probably feel to nature, appreciation for the environment, and I think that's led in my interest also in my studies, but also the connection that comes with having lived a village life as a child, and unfortunately with that comes war, separation, loss of family members. But at the core, that still drives who I am in many ways. And then, after that experience, we had no choice but to move from the village because it wasn't safe for us to continue to be there. And one of the reasons for that was because my mother became an activist. So after my father died in the war as a freedom fighter, my mother couldn't continue to live in the village, and so we were forced to go to Meda, or as I would call it, Me'rab,
the east zone, yes, of Eritrea.
In the southern regions.
Yes.
And so it wasn't Sahel as typically we know it to be, as the grounds for where Tegarelti and all the developments and the innovation that took place in our revolution. But Me'rab I would describe it as the epicenter of where the interactions between the people of the highland and the freedom fighters were in constant interaction and connection together.
You have a beautiful story to share, Lemlem. You should consider to write a book, because I am sure there is more to say about all these experiences. But the proud of 3 generations. Now we are living in an information world age. Network, connecting Eritrean professionals. How important is to build a network to know each other here in diaspora? Do you have anything to say on that?
I myself can't take any credit because I probably could do a little bit more in terms of contributing, initiating and building to these types of initiatives. However, I do know from what I see, there's a lot of brilliant minds from different fields, be it from academia, you know, in all the different fields that are actively living out their dreams. And I think that is inspiring. I know that the odds are always there, but there are a lot of young people that are achieving their dreams. And so in terms of how do we contribute and how do we maintain that network, I think it starts with conversations, for example, such as this one. I look at it, and that's one of the reasons why I am humbled that you've decided to have me with you here today, because it can lead to that, right? When we create and we open platforms for real discussions, and we welcome these types of conversations, hopefully that will lead us somewhere to connect and build something bigger.
Fantastic. Finally, what message would you like to give to the young Eritreans watching this interview, Lemlem?
What would I say to young Eritreans? I think,
because you know, we need always real role models, and with all your experience, with all your achievements, I mean, for me, you are a role model. This is very important. So I think it's very important to motivate our young Eritreans in diaspora. So I think you should have a message to share with, isn't it?
yeah, I think I can speak more from obviously from my professional, right? Whatever
Yes.
your passion is, whatever drives you, I think to just not be discouraged, to try to work towards it, whatever the challenges may be, you can overcome. And a lot of times when we are going through the journey, we can lose sight, right? Because we're taught to think, you know, the end goal. So sometimes we forget what that process looks like, you know, and the process actually is filled with a lot of obstacles and challenges, right? And those actually are the key and important defining moments. When we overcome these hurdles, you know, it means that we're ready to go and challenge and address the next barrier. And you know, and when we finally achieve whatever that destination is, for example, achieving a degree, you know, when you start, you think, oh, it's a big thing, and then you know, the day of graduation, you have a diploma in your hand, and at that moment, you recognize it's a big achievement, but it can seem like it's nothing. What matters is, I think, the process of what you had to overcome. You know, be it from going through those exams. Working hard to make sure that you have enough money to pay for the tuition, paying your rent. You know, it's all these things actually that define you, you know, and if you can work towards that, I think that's it.
Lemlem Girmatsion, coordinator of the Global Health Center in Geneva, Switzerland. It's great. It was a pleasure to have you here on EmbassyMedia. We wish you all the success on your work, on your family, on your future works, and greeting to the family, to the kids in Geneva, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Yared. It was my pleasure, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.
Take care. Thank you. Another special edition on the Pride of Three Generation. My guest tonight was Lemlem Girmatsion, coordinator of Global Health Center in Geneva, Switzerland. We will have more guest speakers, accomplished success in their personal and professional life. Thank you for being with us here on EmbassyMedia. Stay safe and good night.